Hello everyone. Now me and my team we're gonna do a presentation about our movie that we have chose, which is the movie starring Robin Williams called Dead Poet Society. So Dead Poet Society came out in 1989. Is directed by Peter Weir, and this movie specifically highlights how Robin Williams as a teacher become like a sort of like a role model to the students and how he impact their students' life. And that boy society is actually a club during the Robin Williams the teacher, and unfortunately it got disbanded for for a reason that you're gonna know later. So it's set in like around 60 in the 50s 60s, like in the Welter Academy. And Welter Academy in this story is like known for us like kind of like straight boarding school, like most almost like a traditional style boarding where like oh you it doesn't have like this like a big exposure. It's like kind of like timid, kind of like really, I would say, secular. Like you don't have like so much freedom to talk about your so this. And they always like rely on like heavily on textbook without instead of maybe like give it a shout to. And the movie itself, because like so commercially success this, and they receive a lot of major award nomination, with Robin Williams also win a best actor for this movie. And the movie itself got like highly recognized. Even to this day, I think me as a Texas Tuesday, I am would say like this movie are worthy to watch.
Hello, my name is Amira, and today I will be presenting you a quick summary of Deepo Society. Deepo Society was taking a place at the boarding school named Wilto Academy. Wilto Academy was strictly following the values of discipline, tradition, and academic excellence. The story begins where there is this group of students that is including Tom Anderson and Neil Perry, whose life began to change when they meet this new English teacher whose name is Mr. Tom and Mr. George. Sorry, Mr. George. Mr. George Getty. Unlike other teacher, this Mr. Kitty encouraged his student to think independently and break the point of carbon die, which means is side of day. Inspired by Mr. George's stories himself, the boys decide to revive the Devo Society back where they will secretly meet inside the cave to read the portrait. The boys begin to gain confidence and passion and their own passion through the meeting itself. For quick example, Neil Perry developed a strong passion toward ethics, which he got a being rule in a school carry. This became a really heavy hot and conflicts toward Neil and his father because of his different passion. His father forbidden him to pursue his dream and urged him to choose a better path. The plot began with a horrible point with Neil death, leading to Mr. Katie's removal from the school. Nonetheless, the kid decided to standing on the Indiana the story. The kid designed to standing on the desk to defend Mr. Katie's teaching.
So, besides the film's profound storytelling, Dead Poet Society has several interesting themes that get people invested in and explore deep into. But I'm gonna talk about three themes that I find to be most resonating to me. So, the first and central theme of this film is Carpe Diem, which is a Latin phrase that means seize the day. And the scene that definitely highlights this is where Professor Keating quoted this same phrase to his students during his first class with them when they looked at a photo of former students. And in his own carefree way, he tells his students to, quote unquote, seize the day and make your lives extraordinary. So what this means that he tells the students to live their lives in their own ways, in their own choices, and all of that. Now, the second theme is about the importance and the purpose of arts and poetry. Now, art comes in many different forms throughout history, and poetry, in particular, is arguably potent in its capacity for imagination and inspires immortality to people or things. Now, in this classroom scene, Professor Keating says to students that poetry is not some boring, mundane exercise that you just do tediously every day, but as something that has the power to express humanity, passion, and love, something that can live in a soul. And as you can see here, Professor Keating interacts with the students like old friends, like he just knew them long before they knew him. And it just especially taught when he, motivated by his words, not just to break out of his shell and fully express his creativity, his imagination, when he starts reciting an improvised poem. And this and this scene solidifies Keating's take on poetry where one must focus on pure personal emotions and not the technicalities of it. And the third and final theme is also heavy in the sense that it makes you rethinking about your life and reflecting on what you did and also looking back in your past life. And that is the burden of parental and societal expectations, especially among young men who are expected to forego their own dreams, their own personal dreams, for something that they are reluctant to take up on. And one example is where Neil, another student from Professor Keating's class, he has a big passion for acting and he loves it to the very core. And his father, upon discovering it, forbids him from performing at the school play, and he tells him to focus on his medical career, to become a doctor that he expected him to accomplish. And this right here, it eventually leads to the two men arguing with one another. And to me, this scene right here really sells the struggles of a student when facing a dilemma such as this. And we all face this dilemma, face similar things like this in our daily lives, whether to choose a path that you personally choose or one that is predetermined by someone, especially your parents. And these three things, these three themes, that's what makes Dead Poet Society a great movie for you to reflect on, for you to watch, and come on. The lessons there, they are life-changing, at least to me and to some of us. Now, I think I'm gonna take this to my friend Iskandar to talk about the character analysis of each character in this film. So,
now let's talk a little bit about the characters in this film. Getting into the first one, which is John Keating, is all about freedom and thinking for yourself. He pushes all of the students to question authority and live by carpe diem through poetry, inspiring confidence in his students, but also challenging the Welton's strict rules and expectations and all that. Now, one of the students that he has is Neil Perry, is a very talented student, but trapped within the expectations of society and his dad, mostly his dad. And his escape to deal with all of the pressure is acting, and his story shows how crushing someone's dreams can have very tragic consequences. And one of the other students, Todd Anderson, starts off very shy, very timid, but he finds his voice with Keating's help, discovering that you can have this courage in you and really grow as a person, which this character really resonates within me. Because sometimes I do have, um, I keep to myself a lot, and I'm trying to find myself through, having courage and grow as a person. So I think that's one of my favorite characters in this movie. And one of my other favorite characters of this movie is actually also someone who's very out there and rebellious against authority and these pressures and expectations, which is Charlie Dalton, a very rebellious, almost hooliganish character. Sometimes he takes it a little too far, but that's really what I like about that character. While on the other side of the spectrum, Richard Cameron sticks to the rules and betrays his friends out of fear. Together, they show the movie's message, which is individuality matters and authority can really crush your dreams. And intertwining in that is the teachers can change lives either for the better or for the worse. Now, together, these characters reinforce the film's message about the importance of individuality, the dangers of excessive control or pressure or expectations, and the lasting influence of teachers on students' lives.
Personally, we can conclude that Dead Poets Society remains a deeply meaningful film that resonates with audiences even years after its release. The performances, especially Robin Williams' portrayal of John Keating, adds realism and emotional depth to the story's central themes. Williams' portrayal of a mentor and vulnerable human being makes Keating feel like a teacher we all wish we had. The film's charming aspect is its realistic portrayal of the differences and similarities between conformity and individuality. The visual contrast between the dark, oppressive halls of Welton Academy and the liberating outdoor spaces where the boys discover themselves is a representation of the struggles that the main characters face. This cinematography reinforces the film's message about breaking free from norms and expectations. However, the tragic conclusion serves as a reminder that inspiration alone cannot always overcome deeply ingrained systems of control. Neil's death is heartbreaking precisely because it feels preventable, and the film doesn't provide clear answers, but instead encourages viewers to consider the real costs of suppressing young people's dreams and authentic selves. The final scene, where students stand on their desks in solidarity with Mr. Keating, despite facing consequences, powerfully demonstrates the influences that his lessons have taken. Even Todd, who began the film paralyzed by self-doubt, finds the courage to stand up both literally and figuratively. This moment suggests that good education isn't about memorizing facts, but about awakening fundamental principles within students that can never be taken away by other people. This movie inspires both educators and parents to reconsider their roles in young people's lives. Are we preparing them for authentic, fulfilling lives of their own, or merely molding them to meet predetermined expectations? The film argues passionately for the former, while acknowledging the societal barriers that make this difficult. Ultimately, it reminds us that teaching is about recognizing and nurturing the new unique potential within each student, helping them find their own voice in the world.
And here's I'm gonna conclude the movie about the Dead Poets Society. Is it a movie that you should watch? I would say, in my opinion, yes. Even like, okay, for me, of course, I'm taking like TESOL as my branch like degree. Of course, like, it's a must watch film for me. But I feel like it's also a must watch film to everyone, because like, it's this movie is about is giving inspiration to someone. But in this movie, they like the teacher is like portrayed as someone like who being inspirational to their student. It doesn't mean like you have to be a teacher to be inspirational. You can be other things, other like jobs code that actually like inspire others to do better, or inspire others to open their mind to explore more about themselves. And it also shows like that education should be developed both intellect and personal identity. It doesn't have to be like solely on the board, solely on the internet, solely. You have to do your own curiosity, you have to adventure your own curiosity to know more. And that's how I think you will see yourself as an educated person. And in a movie also, it's like it shows like the teacher as a role model to the students, which is not just like they don't see the teacher as someone who just instructed like, oh, you I write this, I write A, you write A, I write B, you write B. No, it's like someone like who gives encourage them to show them like what they can capable of doing themselves, and it help them to express their true self. Like sometimes they don't, the student doesn't know like what they're gonna do, and teachers sometimes can help them seeing what is there. So I think these movies are worthy to watch, even if you're not taking like becoming a teacher. I This movie is still, from in my opinion, still like on the test of time. Like this movie came out like in the 89, and now I think movie still relevant to this day, because this movie still shows how the massive impact as a teacher, as a someone who inspire others. So I think for me it's a movie worthy to watch. And yeah, that is my point. And thank you so much for those who watching watching this video. I would like to also thank you from on behalf of my teammate and myself. Thank you so much, and hopefully we see you again later. Bye bye.